Facebook, Instagram, and all. As we doing it right here for you in your community with Rainier Avenue Radio World and God is an inspiration of gospel music. Also, we're doing a lot of different things in your community. We give out free food. We give out a lot of things in the community. We do a lot of shows. We do a lot of things on the sports part, and we want you to come on out and tune us in, and come to the community. And we do a lot of things in your community. So make sure you go to our website, Rainier Avenue Radio World, and also go to the God Is website and look us up and see what we do in your community, something maybe you might like. So come on by and check us out from 11 to 2. Free food giveaway.
I was Rainier Avenue
Wash your hands, don't touch your face, wipe things down, clean up your space. When you cough and sneeze, do responsibly. If you feel you're getting ill, isolate at home and chill. No, you're not alone. Please pick up your phone and call 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health Community Radio Station will provide you with more information. Say Rainier Avenue Radio. Your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Check us out on social media, Facebook and Instagram, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, and on Twitter at Rainier Ave Radio.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, Tony B. I am your host for the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. Again, this is a show that we do every Friday from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and started doing this on March 13th of 2020. Here we are, November 5th, 2021, and there are still a lot of relevancy to this show, and there will continue to be, because as we know now, that we didn't know in March of 2020 that this is going to be here for a while. As a matter of fact, folks are planning out for the impact of the coronavirus through 2025. I mean, and there's a lot of other things going on too. But just if you want to know what the business world is thinking, aside from the politics and other information and disinformation, that's kind of the landscape from there. And there's a lot more to it as well. But we've got another great show planned for you. We'll be sharing information a little bit later on. Jim Buchanan, who's the president and CEO of Washington State African American Cannabis Association, will be joining us, along with Vice President Phil Petty. Yes, cannabis was impacted and has been impacted by the coronavirus. It is now legal. And of course, along with that, the pandemic showed us that the safety nets were not there. And there was also systemic oppression, and that's taking place in the legal cannabis industry. That'll be 2:30. And at 2 o'clock, good to have Benton Hines back. He was here last week, but we had some internet issues, and he's going to come back, and you'll just hear his story. One white man's journey from privilege to anti-racism and abolitionism. Whether you agree or disagree, it's his journey from, again, one white man's journey from privilege and how he ended up, going from there to anti-racist work and abolition work. Right after this next segment coming up, we'll have Nina Valerio and Joseph Scott joining us. And again, the pandemic. There are some things going on with our long-term care insurance companies preying on the elderly and disabled. And so, yeah, an opportunity to hear about this again. A lot of times folks' voices don't get heard and things are happening until it's way too late. And you know how we get down on Rainier Avenue Radio. We make sure that the concerns of our community are elevated, in particular when you're talking about unanticipated challenges. And the thing that we know now is it's not just our community. Our community is so diverse that if it's going on and you're in an area around, well, it's impacting you too. And you can also know that you're not alone in it. So we'll be talking to Nina and Joseph about, again, long-term care insurance companies and what's going on there. We knew that one of the things that was happening as well was the elderly were being, and again, I use this word, preyed on for their properties during the pandemic because there was isolation. And, people would come and try and get the houses. We know that. It's a whole nother conversation though. So we're going to find out more about long-term insurance companies and what's going on there. You might want to, be your mother, father, grandfather, grandmother. You might want to pay close attention to this because they may not be aware of some of the scams that are going on there. And we'll find out. But right now, joining us is Mr. David Keys of the City of Seattle Digital Equity Program. David, how are you?
Hey, Tony. Excellent. Glad to be here. Shout out to you and the Rainier Avenue Radio folks for doing the great programming. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being here. So what we're going to be talking about is my camera just decided to see if I can. Oh,
yep, I'm somewhere in here too.
Let's see.
Daniel,
can you work this out so I can?
COVID life in the here.
Yes. All right. There we go. Thank you. Well, internet for all is what we're going to be talking about. And David, I'm sure, as you know, just like the other issues that I said we were going to be talking about during the pandemic, the internet, not that it already wasn't an issue, but we know that just if you just say the internet, everybody was impacted, in a number of different ways. And so there's a lot to talk about here. There's a lot to unpack here. But we'll start with the concept of internet for all and just proceed that a little bit, David, by sharing some information with you about you. First of all, you were the first community technology planner in the country and 30 years working at the intersection of information and communications technologies and race and social justice. Prior to this city, David worked in community media, educational TV, and online course development. Yeah, I mean, David, I don't know how many years ago it was, but I personally remember interacting with you, and we were talking about, the importance of the internet and that we had to make sure that we had access, and that our seniors had access in particular. Right. And this was a way
back, yeah.
Anyway, you've been doing this for a long time, so let's start with this. Compared to the rest of the country before the pandemic, where was Seattle at in regards to access, the concept of the importance of the internet, the resources that were available via the internet, the infrastructure that was in place, just compared to the rest of the country before the pandemic hit? And you can use this opportunity to talk about the Department of Technology and all that stuff.
Yeah. Happy to kick off from there. And I mean, it's just been both astounding, what COVID's done to just showing up for folks who weren't aware and just making it so much more critical and challenging as well for people to get that access to get online and use online services. So, I mean, before COVID, I'd say our region in some ways was ahead of the game in both kind of being a community that adopts technology in the broad sense, but also a community that has done efforts to kind of care for each other in helping folks get online. And so, I mean, the interesting piece that goes all the way back to the mid 90s in Seattle when volunteers from Boeing and community groups in the community in the Central District started gathering parts together and helping people use computers at Rainier Community Center and Garfield, and then kind of took off from there. And we were fortunate that the city of Seattle made a commitment and started allocating some of our cable TV revenue to create our technology matching fund grant and help community get some access and support the capacity out in the community. I mean, we know before COVID, I mean, there's a few things kind of as we talk about, like what is it that people need to get full opportunity, right? So as you're talking, earlier about applying for benefits, well, what does it take to just get that benefit now? And so that maps and that gives us the snapshot then of like what is digital access and equity, and so that takes like an affordable and sufficient internet connection, and that takes having a computer device that works, and the support to keep it working. It takes the navigation skills and the digital literacy skills to be able to use it. And then the other piece of that, of course, is like once you get to that benefits portal, what does that look like? Like, is that in visually in my language? Is it culturally in my language? Is it easy to find and easy to use? And so, so how are applications and systems designed? So those four kind of legs of the stool of the internet access, devices, and tech support, the skills, and the application design are the things that, as we're talking about, like where are we at individually and where are we at as a community, that matter. And so we know, like before COVID, from some of the community research that we've done, there were about 5% of folks who had no internet access in Seattle, and similarly kind of in the region. Obviously in King County, there's some areas in the broader King County that don't even have any internet access. There's no system going there. But in the urban areas where there is some access, then it becomes that affordability question. And I think what, so we were at this sort of 5% level with no internet access. And then, we were about 18% that had limited digital skills, that they acknowledge, they recognize themselves, that I need more. But even that 5%, we know among communities of color, like, and low income folks, that was closer to 25%. So clearly that huge difference for BIPOC communities and low income communities.
And this was pre-COVID.
And this is pre-COVID, right?
Okay, so
right.
And like
so
I
even
said,
in our high tech city, this is still what's happening.
Because we got a lot to unpack here. So I'm going to move you forward. Okay, now COVID hits. And this is the same question I'm asking you that I ask everybody. And it is always so COVID hits, David, what happens for you? What does your department do? Where do you go? Okay, you were where you were. Nobody was anticipating or expecting this, or maybe you were. Maybe like some schools had action plans in place. What happened to the Department of Technology, to IT? What took place?
Yeah, I mean, mid-March 2020, March 18th, everything started. I think it was when everything closed down. The city facilities started closing down. Schools were closed down about that. And so it was bam. So from our end, I mean, I think what we did first is reaching out to connect with Seattle Schools, Seattle Housing Authority. The schools started scrambling right away. They had started working towards a one-on-one computer program to give students devices, but they had only just started rolling that out at the high school level. And then that internet connection at home became all that more critical. So kind of our first response was working with the schools and others to get information out about what internet's available. The school district started pivoting to hand out devices to families. At that time, Amazon chipped in with some tablets to help that get going. The district, we worked with Comcast, Wave, they worked with Verizon, T-Mobile then to start to say, how can we get families their internet service at home? And so we did some sign-up events to help that and get the word out. So that was kind of the first response. We were seeing what we could do to support the community orgs that we've been supporting with our tech matching fund grants and others. And to encourage and see and push and all that to see what the companies were going to do about the internet program. So that was kind of the first step. And then just to kind of lead in, I guess, in a way, what I would also say, what quickly hit, is that all of a sudden when you and I and our neighbors were all at home and the kids are at home and they're all trying to get on the internet at once, right? Then it was like clogged. So for folks that had a lower speed internet connection, things started really jamming up. Kind of pause there, and I can go more into that too.
Okay. That pretty much sums it up. Of course, there's so much to unpack here. So now, Internet for All. Tell us what Internet for All is. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, so we can get into some of the specifics. Is it a catchy slogan? Is it a comprehensive plan to make sure that everyone, has access to the internet? Or is it a thing where something is meant to increase equity? Because again, there still can be a lot of barriers there. Having to go to the library to get the internet is much different than having internet at your home, high speed, while you're watching TV and taking care of the kids at home. That's whole different. Anyway, example. You tell us so that I know, and everyone knows. Internet for All.
Yeah. So Internet for All. So the city council, led by council member Alex Peterson, put forward a resolution, said, we got to push this. We got to make sure everybody has internet for, and so what are we going to do about that? Let's step up the digital equity work that we've been doing to respond to that. And so the council and the mayor said, okay, give us a snapshot. Where are we at and where do we need to be going? And so they passed this Internet for All resolution, and our department worked with others to do a kind of a profile of where the city's at and what we need to do, and developed a set of strategies to help move us forward. And so the Internet for All resolution and then the program and subsequent strategy addresses some of these efforts to say, let's increase the distribution of devices. let's help with solutions that can provide some of this more affordable internet, and work with companies where we can. Let's promote that availability. Let's try and also work on policy and help encourage policy at the state and federal level that will help move that forward as well. And there's certainly, we've seen some interesting things happen in that regard that are important as well. So, and then the city this past year, or this year, then allocated, we have an annual round of this technology matching fund grants that support community efforts. And so a couple things that happened. The city put some of the federal recovery money to enable us to double the number of technology matching fund grants that went out to community groups, to support them doing the outreach, the training, and help them pivot to deliver services online also.
I'm going to interrupt you there for a second. Again, you're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio World. This is our special impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities program. And again, my guest is David Keys, City of Seattle Digital Equity Program Manager. We're talking about Internet for All, what that means, what that looks like, what that feels like. And again, like I told you at the beginning, this is going to be a lot to unpack. Because we're also talking about this during a pandemic. So where we're at right now, David, as I fast forward you a little bit, compared to the rest of the region, compared to the rest of the country, and do you have that information? Equitable access to the internet. Now that we've had 20 months of time to say, okay, this is where we're at, where are we at right now? And maybe that comparison for me can just be compared to the rest of the country, because we don't know what necessarily to compare it against. This can be you telling me evidence-based research or just in your opinion. Where are we in regards to Internet for All?
Yeah, so I think we've seen, what we've seen is a lot of stepping forward from, from the city, from the community, from companies to do efforts. I think we're kind of on parallel with many cities across the country. What we're tracking right now, we have, first of all, I would say we have kind of limited overall population numbers on how improved the internet is, but we do have some numbers, for instance, on there's this emergency broadband benefit program that's providing a federal subsidy for internet.
So we don't really know where we're at compared to other countries. And I'm not putting you on the hot seat, but at the same time, when you have a program show, this is not an infomercial. It's called Internet for All. If this thing has been in place, it's been a short amount of time, but there were things in place before. And for those who are either lacking the resource that they need, or for those who are concerned, again, are the resources getting to where they're supposed to be? Some sort of measurables about how successful this is, as we're talking about it. We don't know. You can't tell me where we're at in comparison to other places, or we're right in the middle of the pack. Obviously there may or may be reasons why, and I'm not trying to stick on this, but where are we?
No. Well, and again, remembering that there's these different measures, right? There's how many folks have devices, how many folks have a sufficient internet connection, and then the skills and the ability to connect.
Right.
So I think, what we do have is we have some numbers like on the, and I don't have this right in front of me, like on the numbers of computers that have been distributed. And I can pull it up, but it's,
I'm talking about a health level. You know what I mean? Just a general comfort zone. You know what I'm talking about. And maybe you don't have this information, and you can tell me
actually,
that too.
And I would say we don't have that full kind of package of comparison right now. So we've got some components, like we can look at the census from last year, but I don't think we have we're hoping to do some additional kind of community data gathering to give us a better picture of where we're at that we can compare. So like other cities like Austin and others are starting to kind of collect this sort of where we at now piece. And so I don't think that we do kind of fully have that picture to say, we're in this, exactly in this, third of the way down or right at the top or somewhere. We
But
kind of know generally
we can
the
talk about some
level
other
of
stuff,
efforts.
but that's pretty important, because if we're doing all this stuff and we say we're doing all this stuff, we have to know if we're reaching the people who we say that we're trying to reach. If we're talking
You're right.
about equity, then
Yeah.
part of rolling this out and saying internet for all is being able to say, this is where we're at, this is who we're impacting, if this is who we're trying to impact, this is how successful or unsuccessful we've been, and now we're in a different stage. What are we going to do at this point? But if we're still just trying stuff, and that's okay, then the people should know that too. You know what I mean? Anyway, so we're talking about internet for all, and again, you described it as a number of different opportunities that could be available. And as I four basic components of this thing, and I'm not going to get into all of the wonky stuff about it, but the amendment, the council budget amendment would add $697,000 GF to Seattle IT for a digital navigators program, which for a lot of people is going to be, what does that mean? But this is part of the money allocation. So let's talk about that portion of it, the digital navigators program. What is that? And just tell us what's part of this whole internet for all thing.
Yeah. So just for context, as we're doing this, there are about $1.96 million proposed. There's money proposed by City Council and amendments to the budget right now as the City Council deliberates what the 2022 city budget should be.
And what I've got here again is Digital Navigators Program, Seattle Public Library hotspot devices, $300,000 for technology matching fund, and a request for a report on internet for all in 2022 adopted budget and future proposed budgets. So, again, but that all sounds kind of wonky. It's important. And then we need to know what's in the details.
So, and so Digital Navigators is supporting cultural, community-based folks to help each other get online and be online successfully. That's the short of what a Digital Navigators program is. And an example of that, a great example is, for instance, a program started in the Yesler community by MMRTI, Multimedia Resource Training Institute, where they're employing young people to help residents of the Seattle Housing Authority communities at Yesler get online, apply for benefits, look for health information, troubleshoot their internet and computers. And so that's an example of like one group of digital navigators in the community. And what we want to do is be able to expand that. There's different models. Some of it may be more tech support, and some of it is just, I was at a vaccine event last week with Central Area Senior Center and at First AME, and you're just helping folks understand what low-cost internet supports available, like the emergency broadband benefit, and so it's kind of supporting those community groups to do that work to help folks get online and get what they need successfully.
And again, $99,000 to Seattle Public Library for hotspot devices, which is cool, because I don't know what it's been during the pandemic, to be honest with you, but I know for a while it was almost impossible to get a hotspot. So let's talk about that a little bit. And again, $99,000 to Seattle Public Library for hotspot devices. Is that right?
Yeah, and so what the library has been doing that's been great is providing this. It's a bit of a stopgap, but they've been working with organizations, and which includes some homeless and transition shelters, community orgs, and they have both a general loan out program for hotspots and a program that's partnering with organizations to have a group of people that will get hotspots for a longer period of time and be able to use them. So that's definitely been a life jacket thrown to you for some folks.
And I'm going through these pretty quickly, I know. But like I said, there's a ton we could unpack here, because at the core of everything that we talk about, it's the internet that is now has been our primary resource for communicating, whatever that issue
Here we
is.
are.
and I think we've adjusted pretty well to getting it done, even though that's a whole nother conversation. But
yeah, it's been a lot of really good work.
$300,000 to the Technology Matching Fund.
Yeah. So the Tech Matching Fund is really a community-driven programs to help. And so we do grants of, it's been up to $25,000 this year to community groups to meet the needs that people see in the community. And so that's gone for the assistance to help get devices into families' hands, to help them get internet service, to do that training for them and the support for them. And in some cases now we're starting to see some of that's kind of resetting up places or adding Wi-Fi, or there's some work going on around community cell projects to help expand that availability of internet for folks. So that's what the Tech Matching Fund grant.
I really tried to give you the room here to not have to give me one-word answers and sound bites. We're like almost overtime, but I didn't want to cut you off, because I said there's a lot to unpack here. And I thank you for coming on the show and sharing. But I do want to at least give you 30 seconds, man, because I've been firing questions at you for final words here that you'd like to say about the Internet for All program, or just whatever you want to say, Dave.
Yeah, no, I think I just want to leave folks with two things. I mean, one is there is potentially more federal support coming with the federal infrastructure bill. This local investment is really important and helps us leverage other funds and other resources. I do want to encourage folks to look at we can provide information and apply for the discount program, the subsidy that's happening with this emergency broadband benefit. And, as City Council deliberates their budget, as we enter into a new mayor, as King County's doing work, then, it really is this collective effort together to help support kind of families and the community groups really helping people get online and successfully.
Again, sorry, Dave, it feels like I'm cutting you off, but but we actually went a little bit over, and I'm glad we got to unpack this a little bit. And we didn't even really get to have a conversation about what the Department of Technology does. So you might have to come back. We'll give an update and share more information about this. Appreciate you coming on.
Happy to, yeah. Appreciate it, Tony.
Yeah, you're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. When we come back, we're going to have a discussion about, ultimately, at the end of the day, elder care and what that looks like, and if they are out there preying on people during a pandemic for long-term care. We'll be back right after this.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not using my GPS to navigate the land of 1,000 dances, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
There is no secret why Downbeat Magazine calls this Seattle's most important annual jazz event. The 33rd annual Earshot Jazz Festival hits Seattle stages October with one-of-a-kind live jazz performances and video live streams all the way through November 7th. This year's Earshot Jazz Festival features established masters like Diane Reeves, Chuco Valdez, Dee Daniel, and red-hot young stars like Theo Croker, Emmanuel Wilkins, and Samara Joy, celebrating both Seattle's history and its future in the world of jazz. Earshot teams up with community partners like Langston, the Royal Room, and Rainier Avenue Radio to showcase Seattle's own resident artists. Tickets and more information are available online at earshot.org. That's earshot.org. Once again, Seattle's most important annual jazz event, I believe. Earshot Jazz Festival, hitting stages early October all the way through November 7th. Call for more information.
Women Empowerment Talk Radio, your roadmap to business success. Tune in every Sunday at 3 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, providing resources and sharing motivational experiences from the everyday entrepreneur. Tune in Women Empowerment Talk Radio every Sunday, 3 p.m. on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
This is Brenda Charles Edwards, host of Seniors Matter. Join me every week to get information on activities and issues that impact the lives of older adults and their families. That's Seniors Matter every week on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Metro League High School football is back.
Tackles off to the races. He could go all the way. He could go.
It's the return of Metro League High School football, Friday and Saturday nights on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Makes a stutter step inside, breaks a tackle. He's on the run. He's going to take it all the way. He's going to take it all the way on the sideline.
Exciting Metro League football live on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's back.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, your host, Tony B. This is our special impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding community show. If you're just tuning in, you just missed a conversation with David Keys where we were discussing the digital fragility or digital infrastructure or digital readiness, depending on how you looked at it, of Seattle prior to and during the pandemic, and the Internet for All and what that program and what that means broadly and how that can impact you. And yeah, that's a big one because, again, that's where we were all forced to. So, yeah, that coming up a little bit later in the program. Once again, we'll be joined by Mr. Jim Buchanan, along with Phil Petty. Phil is Jim is the president and CEO of Washington State African American Cannabis Association. Phil is the vice president, and yes, legal cannabis was impacted by marijuana, was impacted by the pandemic as well. And yes, again, that came out in a way where people are saying, was it equitable? Well, we're going to find out. As a matter of fact, these gentlemen are saying that state was using mafia style, which is a strong word, tactics to keep black folks out of it, whether you agree with it or not. Then Benton Hines will be joining us again to share one white man's journey from privilege to anti-racist work and abolitionist work. He'll be joining us at 2:00 here. Whether you agree or disagree, again, it's his story. I think it's going to be interesting, and check that out. But right now, I'd like to welcome Nina Valerio and Joseph Scott. Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.
Thank you very much. We're very honored to be invited.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here, and again, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of the way and let you tell your story and share your information and share your experience. But a lot of people may not even be aware of what we're talking about. So let's start with the concept. Can you tell us what long-term care insurance companies and why that exists and what that is, what we're set the stage here for who and what we're talking about?
Where long-term care insurance are supposed to protect the vulnerable, like the elderly, those with disabilities and incapacities. They're there to support us during our most vulnerable times. And but in our case, they were not there. They have really disappointed us, and it's a bait and switch kind of a situation in our case. We are retired professors. My husband from University of Washington, and I am from Seattle University. And over 22 years ago, my husband got a notification from MetLife Long-Term Care Insurance inviting us to sign up for a preparation for the future as we get older and in preparation for clinical conditions that can occur as we age. And so we signed up, and the premiums unfortunately kept on going up. And in 2020, COVID arrived unexpectedly, and causing us a lot of challenges that are so immeasurable, and exacerbated our situations. And I'm not just speaking for ourselves, but for millions of others here in the United States and beyond. In 2020, my husband went through lots of tests, many tests, because of the symptoms that he was undergoing. And then January 2021 came along, and we were bombarded by the results of the test of his clinical conditions, and multiple myeloma, which caused him the abrupt loss of one of his eyes, causing him to be blind. And multiple myeloma is cancer of the blood and the bone marrow. And then there's also cognitive impairment with memory loss, prostate cancer, and all of the issues that come with all of these clinical conditions. But because we thought we were being proactive 22 years ago by signing up with MetLife long-term care insurance, we were both at ease, and we said to each other, thank God we did this over 22 years ago. But when we called the insurance, we were bombarded with this multi-step process and voluminous documents.
Okay.
And I found out that my husband has earned over $323,000 of benefits, and so we were counting on that in the midst of the challenges of COVID, only to find out that they were going to allow us only 4 hours of help from a caregiving agency that we will choose. And that
I'm going to stop you right there, but I want you to continue. So remember so you said you thought you had $323,000.
Yes.
And instead of $323,000, you had 4 hours?
Just 4 hours, costing only 4 hours, amounting to less than $150 a day. Less than $150 a day coverage. And here we are, it's November, and we have not received a penny because we only continue to receive letters of denials of our claims and delayed coverage. So you can just imagine what that has done to us. And we found out that we're not alone in this situation. Over 800 people have filed complaints, and the number is increasing against insurances, long-term care insurances like MetLife. And the CEO earns $14 million annually, like in 2020. And here we are, we have not received a penny. And so my husband and I had no choice but to also hire a caregiving aide to help me as a caregiver out of pocket. And so we call on legislators, we call on OIC, the Office of Consumer Protection. We call on Governor Inslee. We call on Bob Ferguson, Attorney General Bob Ferguson, to help consumers such as us. and to hold them accountable. It's a bait and switch kind of a situation, which we don't deserve. And it's broken promises, and MetLife has ruptured our trust, and it's and we need help. We need help, and it's a warning to others, not just to people such as ourselves at our age, but it's a warning also to young people who thought that they are going to be proactive by signing up for long-term care from these nonprofit organizations, only to be disappointed, only to be angered by what they have to go through in the midst of the challenges presented to us by COVID.
Nina, I want you to continue. I'm just going to stop here for a second. And for folks who are just tuning in, you're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world and our coverage of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. My guest is Nina Valerio and Joseph Scott, and we're talking about long-term care insurance. And Nina has been explaining how 20 plus years ago, her and her husband said, "Oh, we've got this taken care of. We've got long-term care insurance, and we anticipate that some things are going to happen, and we've got that covered. We've been proactive about it." And what she is sharing with us is that she's flat out saying bait and switch, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, because it sounds like a scam. And as the end result of it, you're not getting the money, you're not getting the assistance, the care, and right now you're having a hard time even getting people aware of what's taking place. And you're saying you're not alone. This is impacting, affecting not just you, but our elders, our seniors, the ones that we say we're supposed to take care of and care for the most. And then during this pandemic, have I said anything that's incorrect?
No, not at all. You've got it 100%.
Go ahead.
Now, I'd also would like to add that when we were searching, my husband and I were searching for caregiving agencies, because that's what we were also instructed to do. Then I seek the help of credible people who have helped us a lot and giving us a list of caregiving agencies to help my husband and myself. And with the hope that MetLife will also help us out. And in our search for caregiving agencies, we came up, my husband and I, with a set of criteria of what we are going to be looking for. And what we have found out is that one of the ones that we have narrowed down the number of agencies for us to consider, because of my husband's severely compromised immune system, we wanted to make sure that the people we are going to hire are fully vaccinated and will follow the protocol, the COVID protocol, to protect us, because we now live in a very small space. We moved from a 4-story house into a small space because we also preparing for the fact that we're going to need financial support and use our savings in preparation for the future, because we cannot depend on MetLife for our long-term care as we had thought we could. And in search of agencies, we found out that some caregiving agencies could not promise us that the age they're going to send us. Again, some of them indicated that they could not promise us that they will be able to send us aides who are vaccinated. And so that's that really alarmed us for reasons I have indicated before. And
did they give you a reason?
Well, it's because some people have chosen not to be vaccinated,
But
and
if you
for different
specifically,
reasons.
but if you specifically, as an elder with things that could exacerbate the situation, if you get it, request someone to be vaccinated, you're saying that you didn't have a choice in that?
Well, our choice was then to choose an agency that will assure us that the caregiver aides that they're going to send us will be vaccinated, and we insist on it. And so when they asked, and finally we chose an agency that can assure us that. But as you know, agencies now are so short-staffed, and that's why we end up, going through a number of caregiving aides, and because caregiving aides also are human beings with personal lives, and they have their personal emergencies, and they also get sick, or their loved ones get sick, and there's also the job insecurity on their part.
There's no way to protect themselves. There needs to be a large, giant government agency to make sure that people like us get protected.
Exactly. I
And
hope
that's the end of it, Nina.
and I hope you heard my husband. And so that's the other challenge that that we had to face, and so we narrowed down our choice of caregiving agencies to the one that we have now.
And again, we're talking about long-term care insurance agencies. And what you're saying is not only are they not fulfilling what they promised that they would do, this is apparently something that it's a scam. Is that's what you're saying?
The long-term care insurance companies such as MetLife and other companies like that are it's a bait and switch situation. It's a scam. It is a scam. And
you
like
were trying to create awareness to this.
Yes.
And in addition to that, you were trying to contact our political leaders, the governor, etc., because you've been hit by this, you've been hurt by this, it's placed you in a bad position, and you just want what you are owed, what you signed up for.
Exactly. My husband and I are more than disappointed. We are very, very angry because of this. We can speak for ourselves, but what about the others who are not able to speak for themselves for whatever reasons? Those who are non-English speakers, or those who live alone and they don't have anybody else, and they just give up. And but fortunately, in our situation, we learned about Washingtonians for Better Futures, and who are helping us go through this. But we also need the help of legislators, and here you are. You're also helping us to also be our voice along with us. I don't know if you can see what's a placard that I have used every time I march, every time we have a protest.
Can you make that? We can kind of see it. Is it something that
show up, stand up, and speak up for equity? Show up, stand up, speak up for equity. We cannot be silent. But unfortunately, some people have no choice. Some consumers have no choice but to be silent because of, for different reasons, not because they choose to be silent, but there are just so many barriers before them.
Okay, Nia, that's enough.
And so this is a warning to others, And we learned about this, the fund. What is that? The Washington Cares Fund. Although it's limited to only about 30 or 36,000 long-term care support once that you need it. It's better than nothing, because right now we have not even received 1 penny from MetroLife. When my husband has earned the benefits of over 323,000. When I ask the claims coordinator assigned to us, during those first months that we have been connecting with each other, and I found out about what my husband's benefits have amounted to, I said to her, so where is the rest of the money coming? If you are just going to give us 4 hours amounting to less than $150 a day, and my husband has over 323,000, where is the money going? And she was silent. And then I kept continuing to, I kept on contacting her with questions. And eventually I didn't hear from her. And then one day I just got this email with a couple of statements that she no longer worked for MetroLife, but not even a name for her replacement. And so I had to search for her replacement and wrote a letter how unprofessional MetroLife is, and it's a scam. That's all I can say. It's a scam, and we should all be angered and be fueled by our anger to fight this. And along with your help and the help of legislators, and starting with Attorney General Bob Ferguson and Governor Inslee, and with the help of Washingtonians for our responsible futures. And because consumers cannot do it alone. We can't. We have to hold hands together and fight to show up, to stand up and speak up for equity, because this is an issue of justice and injustice.
Nina, I appreciate you and your husband both joining me again. You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio .world. This is how we get down. When I say we provide a platform for the voices in our community. This is exactly why we exist, Nina. And I thank you for sharing your story. And then you're out there marching on top of it to get what I've only got a couple of minutes here left, but I want to give you the opportunity for final words that you would like to share with anyone listening right now.
Well,
we need government.
Yes, as my husband is saying, we need the help of the government to do this. And it's a warning to others. And I've also have found out that such insurance, long-term care insurances, are already planning for solvency. And it's so the call from consumers is loud and clear, and through your radio station and other agencies such as yourselves, we can do this. We can fight this injustice. So please help us, and to hold them accountable, and if to hold them accountable, and we need to be refunded for what we have put in. The premiums keep on increasing, and yet we receive not 1 penny, but we only receive letters of denials after denials.
Okay,
well,
stop, Nina.
Nina, we will again make this available for folks to watch themselves, to hear your story again on demand. We will follow up with you and see where we're at, and check back in with you. And I hope that you know that you have a resource right here on Rainier Avenue Radio to be able to share your progress, your story, your grievances, things that are impacting you in your life. And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you too for giving us this opportunity. And my husband, Thanks you as well.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you. Bye.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, your host, Tony B. This is our Impacts of the Coronavirus on South Seattle and Surrounding Community show. Earlier at 1 o'clock, we had David Keys joining us for the Internet for All, talking about Seattle's preparedness internet-wise in a number of different ways prior to the pandemic, then the pandemic, and then kind of trying to find out where we were at now. You just listened to Nina Valerio and her husband share their story of long-term insurance, as they are calling it, a scam. And, having tried to be proactive and prepare for this, sharing now what they're actually going through. A little later in the program, Jim Buchanan and Phil Petty will be joining us from the Washington State Association of Black Cannabis to discuss the disparities that they have seen happen now that the cannabis is legalized and how the pandemic is impacting that. Joining us next, once again, will be Benton Hines, and he's got one white man's journey from privilege to anti-racist and abolitionist. So whether you agree, disagree, it's going to be his story. Stay around and check that out. Looking forward to talking to Benton, and we'll be back on Rainier Avenue Radio.world right after this. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hi, it's Queen Bree, Director of Clean Greens Farm and Market, and your host of Clean Greens Living Life, broadcasted on Rainier Avenue Radio.
And me, Robin T.
We are here to invite you to our biggest celebration of the year, our annual Lottie Cross Harvest Dinner, on Tuesday, November 16th at 6 p.m. Check out our cool lineup. We will be having a sit-down chat with the one and only Doug Baldwin Jr. We also have in-house DJ Mr. Nice Guy, raffles and pictures from our very own comedian and activist, Deontay Damper, and the rest of our Clean Greens Farm family.
Get tickets by emailing us at cleangreensevents@gmail.com or go to our website at cleangreensfarmmarket.com.
Holla!
What's on your heart? Are you exhausted at the lack of progress for people of color in business, politics, and life? This is Cindy Bright, the host of Heartbeat Radio. Each week, we explore this heart condition of the country that is affecting you and me. We have real conversations about what's necessary for change. It's time to change this dialogue. Will you join this Heartbeat weekly, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio?
Yo, what's good? It's D-Money, and you should definitely check out Fresh Juice every Wednesday, 9 to 11 Pacific, right on Rainier Avenue Radio.
With pint-sized Patron, P-Treasy the Don, y'all be sure to clean your mirrors as we play brand new hip-hop and R&B from locals and worldwide.
It's ID Yourself, a.k.a. Malcolm Flex. Make sure you check out Fresh Juice every Wednesday, Pacific Standard Time from 9 to 11 p.m.
And to get those exclusive interviews that we be doing.
Sipping a brand new fresh juice every single week.
Yeah. Every Wednesday, 9 to 11, Rainier Avenue Radio. Yeah.
November is American Indian Heritage Month, so please join Rainier Avenue Radio.world to celebrate all month long the history, the contributions, and the accomplishments of our first Americans. Again, please stay tuned to Rainier Avenue Radio.world to celebrate and honor American Indians during American Indian Heritage Month.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Check us out on social media, Facebook and Instagram, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, and on Twitter at Rainier Ave Radio.
Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, your host, Tony B. This is our special broadcast of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. And that's everything. It's everything. If you're just tuning in right now, you missed earlier our conversation with David Keys, the City of Seattle Digital Equity Program Manager, talking about Internet for All, where we were as a city prior to the pandemic, what happened during the pandemic, and what's happening now. And again, that's a big picture issue because everything shifted with the pandemic in regards to our relationship with the internet, and of course exacerbated all of the safety nets that were not there to accommodate, a country with a history of systemic oppression. And folks are trying to rewrite history now, but whatever. We know what happened during that time. And also, we just spoke with Nina Valerio, sharing information about what she sees as a scam in long-term care insurance, and in trying to be proactive about this, and then during a pandemic, and then having health issues, and then not paying for what the insurance companies not paying, and saying that this is a problem within the long-term care system. And we certainly gave her the platform to share her story, and you can think or not think, but if you get lucky enough, you're going to live to be a senior. So we'll follow that up. Right now, joining me is Benton Hines. Benton, how you doing, man?
Good to see you again, twice in 1 week.
Well, we were having a conversation, had a few internet challenges and some stuff, which happens in this time. But you agreed to come back, and again, I'm just saying, quite, bluntly, one white man's journey from privilege to anti-racist and abolitionist work, and that's what I'm saying. And I think that you agree that that's what took place.
I might amend that statement slightly. Okay. It's not from privilege because being white, male, retired, I can't leave that privilege. So I'm within the privilege, and then finally opening to what could abolition mean for Black people, but for white people and all my colleagues who are beginning to work on abolition as a positive concept of society and culture. So
well,
I can't leave my privilege, but I can use it, I hope.
Let's go back to where we're starting from, because this is a big topic.
It really is.
Discussions now about history, and what is history, and who writes history, and who determines what this country should look like, what this country did look like, and what it should look like going forward, and what we learn about the history of this country. And if you're talking about privilege, it's at the core of these conversations. So let's start with that. The period prior to wherever you want to start with, what was there an understanding on your part that there was an innate privilege that you just had? Were you aware of that, or did you were you aware that there was a difference in the way that you would be looked at for a bank loan, for buying a house, for when you walked into a store, for you name it? Was that something that you were at all was under your was in your radar at the time?
Yeah, such a good question, a good place to start. So, there was an original moment, recent. I mean, I'm in my early 70s, so there are lots of original moments. But in late 2016, there was a moment that catalyzed me and transformed me, but not all at once. The transformation is ongoing. And how do I see whiteness? And how do I see whiteness in the context of our history? Not only from a position of not from a position of guilt necessarily, but what can I do now? What is my responsibility now as I began to open in 2016 and in the last 5 years? So history is very much a part of it. The opening is ongoing, and I don't expect I'll ever get to the end of that. And my guides are that I've come to appreciate these last 5 years are James Baldwin is so important to me. He's my mentor and I could say, a spiritual guide, because he somehow, on the basis of love, even after all his life, he emphasized that we can be better and that love is the basis for becoming better as a person and as a society. And it's incredible that he could say that after his life and what he had to face. So
It's interesting that you bring up James Baldwin. One of my views of James Baldwin is that he understood code switching before it was a buzzword in order to share and communicate his information. Again, Benton, so tell me what it was like just to be a white guy. What are the things that you thought prior to the epiphany? How did you go through life? I mean, did it matter, or was it?
It's hard to describe the numbness that goes with privilege, and the doors that open. Like you said, I think you actually mentioned doors that open. I remember being let off a speeding ticket on my way to Bellingham by this young cop, and afterward, it dawned on me he would never have let anybody but a white person off. He just sort of let me off and gave me a warning. Sometimes there was a door opened. I remember a 7-Eleven once, a person allowing me to use a restroom when it's normally closed to, the public. But it's Tony B, there's a kind of numbness. It's sort of the world. It's this crazy assumption that the world is white. And I've had the good fortune of somehow being pushed or triggered or penetrated so that the illusion of that is now mine. I see the illusion. I haven't lived it as fully as Black and brown people, Native American people, but it's mine, and I can't unsee what I saw or see.
Now, does this make you an apologist? Does it make you responsible for the sins of your fathers? I don't know, and it's your perspective on that. But how do you see? I'm just going to call it your awakening or whatever. We'll start with that.
So yes, it definitely was an awakening from whiteness and numbness, not really realizing the myths and lies of history. And so I've had to, as a white man of privilege, retired and can afford to be retired, I've had to sort my way through, how can I talk about this even with you? What is my stance related to the past and our history that is so clearly, I can so clearly see now, is based in violence and blood. So my stance now, and it's developing, it's not finished. My stance now is that what can I do now? I can acknowledge the past, and what could I do to bring along my white friends and relations, people I know, people I have yet to meet? What can I do to come along, to become a collective and embrace the conversation that I don't believe it's just me who wants to embrace this conversation on privilege. And I'm only talking at the personal level. I'm not trying to lead a movement or anything. I'm more interested in relation, with other white people who realize the lies and the myths of our history and want to be inclusive and take responsibility today and then tomorrow. And for me, as long as I live, which is not as long as some of the people I'm working with. They're much younger in some ways.
And so let's talk about that. The people that you're working with, you said you're person, but you're also involved in working with groups, organizations. Would you call them movements? And you say personally not, but would you call the organizations that you're involved in movements? And let's talk about who they are. We said anti-racist and abolitionist. Who are we talking about? And let's talk about the work that you're involved in.
Right. Yeah. So I am part of a forming abolition group, abolition solidarity group, that arises from an organization called CARW, Coalition for Anti-Racist Whites. It's an affiliate of SURGE, as I understand it, the National Stand Up for Racial Justice. So in short, that's my response in terms of, what are the affiliations? Abolitionist solidarity group, anti-racist whites, could be multiracial as well, but so far the people I'm working with are all white. So that's my brief, short answer.
And what goes on? Is there a specific goal? Is this just conversation? Is it about camaraderie? Is it about creating awareness?
That's right. I'm laughing when you say camaraderie, because that's a kind of code for, does it center on whiteness? And if it does, and if it did, and I don't think it will with these brilliant people that I'm working with, but if it did center on whiteness, I'm out of there. That's not the point. It's, club is not a point, not the point. I already am a member of the club of whiteness with all of its destructive effects. I need more, I'm speaking personally, I don't want the claustrophobia of being white. There are emotional losses, spiritual losses that one I dimly begin to realize as a white person, being in that whiteness. So the point, I say forming, it's a forming group. We've been meeting for 5 to 6 months. We, in the process of the last 5 or 6 months, we turned for a few weeks toward supporting Nikita Oliver and their campaign for District 9 City Council seat. So it seems that, and that was great for a group coming together, gain some sense of trust and friendship, commitment to one another, and a kind of distillation of focus. That now, at this point, we're at a inflection point. What's next?
If you're saying that you turned your support towards Nikita Oliver and she lost, and the person who won says the city has spoken on the direction of the city, what does that mean to you? Is that does that mean that, well, because Nikita's not there, things have changed, we have to work? Does that mean that, well, you know what, maybe the work that maybe I have to think about the work that we're doing? What what does that mean, since you brought it up?
Well, I can speak for myself, and I think as a group, we're about to dive into this question. What does that mean? What does that mean now? For me, the result of the election means that it's going to be the same old, pushing people around, the council fighting with the mayor. And beyond that, I don't have a lot of knowledge of city politics, frankly. Other people can speak much more knowledgeably than me. But Nikita Oliver said an interesting thing the other day before yesterday, perhaps, as they realized that the election, that they might lose this election and might not gain a city council seat. Nikita said, it's really important that abolition is now a topic in the local media where it wasn't before. And so I'll just say my personal hope with the anti-racist group and colleagues that I'm working with, my personal hope is that this abolition solidarity group nested within the Coalition for Anti-Racist Whites, becomes a prominent voice in this city that represents the best possibilities for abolition, that changes the standard of language so that it's inclusive instead of frightening, as it seems to have been in this election here, but also across the country. I mean, the white racial anxiety here and across the country is just, it's there. You can feel it. But we are neighbors too, as white people, and we have a vision as well that we're going to need to articulate, but also deepen in our skill in communicating and connecting with people who don't agree, which I think could include some portion of the Black population. I'm just awakening to this, who may not agree that we need less police. That's part of just, the disappointment of an election making me and us, all of us, more intelligent about what's really going on. This is it's a very complex reality, and I am very much learning from the group I'm with, and then from people like you, everybody I meet, my professor friend who voted for Bruce Harrell and Ann Davison, and we are now engaged in the conversation about that, and he knows what I think.
So what and it's a tough question for Black people to answer, so I don't expect you to really, but so for you, now, as opposed to before, what does it mean to be Black? Someone says, before you had this change, what does it mean to be Black? How do you define being a Black person?
As the white male, I obviously am. How could, in the first place, it would be incredibly presumptuous of me, but I want to take your question and enter the presumption slightly. And what it means to me is to open to the full humanity of people who have any color skin, Native American, and then I have my granddaughters who are brown. They're beautiful and brown, and they are going to experience racism, no doubt about it. And they are so beautiful, and I would love to protect them. But it means to respect the humanity and open myself to I would say this, the Black gaze upon me as a white person. Face the shame, face the embarrassment, and then don't look away, but open to the humanity of that shame and embarrassment, but don't give in to it.
Now, what I'm asking you, Benton, and you know what it is, man. We have open. I'm asking you what you think it means to be Black, and you're kind of telling me how you see it bounce back on you. And I'm just wondering, and we can go on to the next question, but the question is, again, what did it change your perception to what you think it means now to be Black? Again, coming from your perspective of privilege, going through the pandemic, having your awakening, seeing, the civil unrest that took place, and some folks say civil awakening. What do you think it means now to be Black? Just a question.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's so beyond my opening to the humanity of Black people, Native American people of all colors. I think that I'm open more fully to the risk that it is to be Black in this society, much less Native American and brown and all that. So that risk, to open to that, what could I say? It's a very deep question, Tony B. And maybe in where I stop, you can see and help me into with a question that leads further and more deeply into
Well,
your
I'll
own
tell you
question.
what, I'll ask you another question then, because every time I've asked you about being Black, you've incorporated other ethnic groups into it. And so maybe that's what it means for you right now, is it means creating awareness to the fact that there are other people other than Black people who are being
Yeah.
impacted, which has been part of our history in this country. But does it make you feel uncomfortable when I say, what does it mean Black, to just hyper focus on Black as opposed to saying, and other people?
Well, it's a little bit of an ethic of fairness that's mine personally. But when I say that James Baldwin is my spiritual guide and my mentor.
So when you say fairness, I'm in your Kool-Aid now. What does that mean? Like, you don't think it's fair to just say Black, that you have to incorporate other groups or ethnic color ethnicities into it?
Yeah. I am personally quite willing to focus on my developing understanding of the Black experience and my opening to that. So when you bring up history, then there in our history, there's the Holocaust that the Native people experienced, massacres. So I've got that in my mind. But my guides have been Angela Davis and Ruth Wilson Gilmore is becoming a guide, and James Baldwin again. So I don't mind. That's not even. I can stay with my own experience and your question and not deflect, if that's what you're thinking, to brown people and Native American people.
My guest is Benton Hines, and this is part of our Impacts of the Coronavirus on South Seattle show. And again, I describe this one white man's journey from privilege to anti-racism and abolitionist work. Whether you agree, disagree, this is your space. This is your walk. And Benton, I appreciate you sharing that. Got a couple minutes left here, so I want to give you the opportunity for final words that you would like to share with our listening audience right now.
Yeah. So, just in the light of the last question and, that you're asking, all of my intent in the last few years since 2016 is to ask myself, what would it look like to see the world through the eyes of a Black person? That's been my primary question. And it's impossible. I mean, I have the experience I have, the birth I have, white hair and all that. But that's been my question. And so that became, over 2 or 3 years, what can I do? Which is really where I am now. What can I do? And then Resmaa Menakem, through Resmaa Menakem, I realized that his advice and counsel, and there's so much advice and generosity from Black feminist thinkers and Black thinkers like Resmaa and James Baldwin. His advice was that for white people like me, come together, do the work together. It's slow work, and then do it in community, and it can only be done together with a sense of kinship and from arising from a very deep feeling of empathy, and again kinship for Black people, which has been my primary impetus. My wife has a Native American heritage, so that does come into my life. With her study, so that's in our house actually. So there is that. So that's maybe my last few words. I don't know if I've run us out of time.
We're good. And just curious for me, for you, is it about the journey or is it about the destination?
Well, It can only be both. And now that I'm in my early 70s, that destination, I mean, I need to focus on that, but I want to be encouraging and lifting up the people that I'm working with toward that destination of a just society, socially just, and a society that understands that the conditions, that when we meet basic needs of 60% of the population, then something truly positive can happen for the Black people and for whites as well.
Well, Benton, I appreciate you joining me. Again, one white man's journey from privilege to anti-racist and abolitionist work. And it's your journey. It's your walk. There's no right or wrong answers. You know what I'm saying? They're your answers. Some people may disagree with that and say that there are right and wrong answers, but that's going to be part of your journey. Thank you for joining me. Again, I'll be back and we'll be talking to Jim Buchanan and then also Phil Petty. Again, how does this impact the coronavirus? Well, the marijuana is legal and the coronavirus has impacted everything. And again, we're going to be talking about, and I'll let them come on and that way they can correct me if I'm wrong. But from what I read and what I understand, mafia-style tactics is what was described that were used to prevent engagement and access, keeping Black people out of legal cannabis business. And I'll let our guests elaborate that, and I'll talk more specifically about what I mean. We'll be back right after this.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not translating the lyrics of Boogie Oogie Oogie for bored Europeans, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.rainieravenue.radio.world.
High school football is back, but guess what? We need more referees. There's a constant need for qualified individuals to work our high school football game. Please consider becoming a football official. Go to pnfoa.com to sign up today. That's pnfoa.com to sign up today. This is a message brought to you by Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your home for Metro High School football.
This is Big Poppy, host of Jazz from the Cabinets. Join me each week for a listening tour of the first century of jazz, an eclectic mix of Dixieland, big band, cool jazz, bebop, contemporary jazz, world jazz, all jazz in all forms. That's Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy on Rainier Avenue Radio, streaming worldwide on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Hello, listener. What's important to you about what's going on in your community? Are you interested? Are you concerned? In any case, I invite you to tune into my show, Seattle Here and Now, on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Why? I will be covering a wide range of topics important to you and impacting the community. Each show will have a special guest or guests to share with you information on a variety of subjects that are happening here and now in Seattle. I promise I will work hard to make my show informative, interesting, and entertaining. Be sure to listen to Seattle Here and Now on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
What is the Delta variant? It's a faster, more efficient version of the original virus that causes COVID-19. It's the same virus, it's just better at infecting people. Delta is far more contagious than its predecessors. It's spreading twice as quickly as the original strain, and people who are infected with it carry around much more virus. Getting vaccinated is the best defense we have against COVID-19, including against the Delta variant. Now check this out. The vaccine is free, safe, and effective. Time to protect yourself is now. Learn more at kingcounty.gov/vaccine.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, Tony B, your host of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. If you're just tuning in right now, hey, go back and check out the entire program. We started at 1 o'clock talking about Internet for All, and what that program was with David Keys, the Seattle Digital Equity Program Manager, which, of course, had to begin with the conversation was how was Seattle prepared infrastructurally, prior to the pandemic, and then once the pandemic hit. How did the city of Seattle respond infrastructurally? And then where are we at now? So did it make a difference? Did we learn anything? Are we doing anything different? You listen to the show and see if you are happy with the answers, satisfied with the answers. At the very least, you will be engaged more about the city's digital programs and, find out more about that. Basically, right now, there's $1.something million that is being asked for to continue this work to create digital equity and access. That's why it's called Internet for All. We listened to Nina Valerio and Joseph Scott tell us about the issues and struggles that they are having, again, with late-term insurance, thinking that they had prepared themselves well in advance and been proactive, only to find out, in their words, it was a scam and they're not getting the money now. You just finished listening to Benton Hines talk about his journey as one white man's journey from privilege to anti-racist and abolitionist work. So whatever it was, whatever the thought was, it was his. So thanks for joining us for that. Right now, joining me, I'd like to welcome on the program both Mr. Jim Buchanan and also Mr. Phil Petty. How are you, gentlemen?
Doing great.
Okay.
Great, Tony. How are you doing? It's great to see you.
Under the circumstances, fantastic. Phil, I want to make sure, because I didn't hear you. Can you holler at me?
Oh, I'm sorry, Tony.
Okay.
Yeah, I got my mic on now. I'm sorry. My computer, unfortunately, didn't do what I wanted to do, so I'm on my phone.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure that I had both of you. The way that I described what is happening, I'm going to let both of you or Jim start with you on this. Since the outset of the legalization of cannabis, Black entrepreneurs have struggled to become part of this process. And then this House bill was passed that was supposed to provide equity in the legal cannabis industry. Again, the organization that you are head of is called the Washington State African American Cannabis Association. So we'll get a little bit into that, and then we're going to let you tell your story and share your thoughts. But first, what is the Washington State African American Cannabis Association?
Jim?
Well, it's an organization that we created. It's an organization that we created to be advocates equity, equality, and economical justice in the state of Washington. As you had stated in when it was legal in 2013, which I'm in recreational marijuana retail, and have been 2014. However, they issued 560 retail licenses, and there's probably about eight to nine African Americans, involved in that. And then out of about 1,840 licenses total, including producing processors, there's probably about 14 total licenses for Americans. And when they come out with a bill in 2020 to be equity and equality, then way is having 38 to Black and brown folks out licenses, 16 of them in moratoriums, and all but two. The other two are in rural outline areas where there are no population. folks at, and then 2 of them are unpopulated. Equity and equality is equal. We need to have the equal amount. We were 4 times going to jail 4 times the rate, with only being 4% of the population. We were going to jail 4 times the rate for marijuana and other drugs, and our communities were impacted, targeted, was supposed to be. It's not quality. New York has a bill out that gives, they're giving 50% of all licenses from the beginning to, and they're also giving 40% of the money that's generated from marijuana, the tax money that's generated from the marijuana, back to the community through a community reinvestment program. So the 2 key things we've been pushing for, and so far successfully so, however, they're trying to undermine them now and walk them back. But one is that we get equal amount of licenses. There's 1,800 some licenses. We want the next 1,800 plus licenses until we equal out. Then it's 50-50 from then on. And even if it's through new license types, through retail, through producer processing licenses, or through delivery licenses or smoke lounge, that would be those last 2 with new license types coming out. And then we're also pushing for, there's $1 billion that has been generated through cannabis tax fund, and they issue out biannually, every other year. And that $1 billion, the direct community hasn't got, there's that to through Apple Care, et cetera, but we haven't got anything directly to the community. So our demand is to get 50% of the tax money directly to the community investment program. So the task force, or the work group from the task force, has recommended, through our pushing that over the last 6-7 months, finally recommended 50% of the money coming to the community. Now on Tuesday, work group meeting that was pushed back to try to walk back. So we're still right now support of the statewide place. We've got the support of King County, Africatown. We have the support of the Urban League. We've got the support of pastors and ministers, around, because the time is now for us to get the true and equality that we deserve. So that kind of frames up kind of what's going on now. We appreciate all the community support that we can get, because what we have is affecting to make a difference and to make a change for once in our life. The Americans have 1.9 billion net receipts last year from gaming, and the legislation and governor just signed a bill last year, which it kicked into this year, to allow them sports betting. So now, when you want to bet on sports, you go to the native casinos, and you can now bet on all sports. That's going to add approximately another $1 billion to the $1.9 annually that they've already been receiving preparation of the state, allowing them to be able to really control gaming. Now we as the African American community have nothing for us to start getting what we're supposed to get. This has been 400 years of emotional, physical, and economical rape and abuse, and it's time for it to stop now. And I'll let Phil go ahead and
well, thank you.
And I just want to, Phil, and I want you to go next. Jim, your internet is coming in and out, and you're saying some very important things, and you're supporting that with numbers and statistics and information. But I wanted to make sure that you had the room to finish the conversation. But just be aware that your internet is going in and out. Phil, are you there?
I'm right here.
Okay, and so you were about to go to you, and I don't know if you could hear everything, but for me, it was breaking in and out.
It was breaking up for me too, Tony.
Okay, and so Jim, I just wanted to make you aware of that, because so if there, I'd like you to go ahead now, Phil. And there's some things that were in there that you know because you know what he was saying, but some folks didn't hear everything that you want to re-support with that. Again, just right now, I'm just going to give you the floor back. I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, so what we, for me, when we first got into this, Jim had invited me to come in and listen to what was going on. And, you know, man, I was just blown away that nobody in our community, now we're talking about billions of dollars, that nobody in our community knew about this. And it was sort of done in a stealth-like way. So it was like this thing was going on, but nobody knew about it. And so once I found out, and by going to a meeting with him and seeing that this was so important that, you know, whatever I was going to the meeting for originally, my own agenda, it was like, wait a minute, this is like one of the biggest things that could ever happen to this community, this state, and to this nation, because this could be the role model that is set, the bar that is set for the rest of the country as they go through the social equity process. And what Jim was talking about is that we wanted social equity and equality. So equality is equal, but social equity is where it has to be put in and framed for us so that it meets what we need. And one of the things that we need besides just getting licenses is capitalization. So there's $1 billion that Jim spoke about that biannually this money could be given out. And what we decided is that we wanted 50%. Now, New York State, which is about to implement this, has a 40% deal where they want to get it, but we thought we wanted 50%. And really, based on being a second generation Seattleite and seeing what my parents went through, my mom's from Mississippi, my dad from DC, I saw the redlining when my dad was trying to build a house, that this was not only about social equity and equality, but this is also a reparations piece. So I felt like we should be getting 65% or 70%, but we ended up settling on 50%. And then we wanted 300 licenses. We wanted capitalization, which when I was listening to the meetings of Jim and Jim would always said that the biggest part of this whole thing is the money that you got to put down to make these stores work. And so a lot of people fail in getting capital together. So everybody on the task force talked about that. And so we decided that out of that general fund money, we wanted $300,000 to help spawn and low interest loans, as well as restrictions lifted so that we could put stores. Because I don't know, when I got arrested, I didn't get arrested in Yelm. I got arrested in Seattle, South End, Seattle, Washington. So my thing is that I would like to be able to have my business where I was so that I can help to make my community better. So now what this does too is that we're empowering, you know, this is financial empowerment for Black folks. And there's no bad thing about that happening. There's so many positives, and it benefits not only our community, but everybody's community. And so I thought that, you know, wow, we got to get on this and be part of this. And so I'm just grateful that, you know, the power greater than me, you know, that I was available, and I had just retired. And so I had the energy, and so Jim and I have just decided that we're going to form this Washington State African Americans Cannabis Society together and go out and work for the community. And so far, like I said, we have taken it from very little to a lot. And now they're trying to walk us back a little bit. But we are not going to yield. We are not going to yield. And we're going to just go as far as we can go with this. And you know, it's our right, and we demand it. We demand it. We like Jim had said earlier, the Native American brothers and sisters have been taken care of, and their reparations started back in 1979. We have yet to get our Jewish community got reparations. The slave owners got reparations when they had to stop slavery. So, it's time for us to get ours. And I know white folks don't want to hear about all this, but you know what? It has set us back at our communities because not enough of us have financial legacy, right? And so this is an opportunity to get some.
And Phil, again, correct me if I'm wrong to here. You are saying that in opposition to this, mafia style tactics are being used. Now, I think I'm saying what y'all said, but if I'm using verbiage that's too strong, then you dial me back, or let's talk about what's going on here again, because again, I see people may disagree for whatever, but you're saying, okay, this makes sense. This is what we're trying to do. And you're saying that, again, despite the House bill that's been passed, now there is a strong armed effort.
The effort is that the majority white owners who are already out, who got a 7-year head start, they are against us being part of this community of cannabis. And so they are, in a sense, I don't call it strong arming, but it's moderate strong arming, because now you talk to people that represent our community and you ask them to go in with what they want us to do instead of doing what's right for the community. Outside of the licenses, what's so huge about this is that this is something that can help our community. We're talking about $250 million yearly that can go back into the community. And we have like Pastor Anderson from First AME Church, the oldest Black church in Seattle, Pastor Witherspoon. We have other people who have nonprofits who are the gatekeepers and know where the money needs to go. We have money that we could put people back in the schools, counselors for our kids. After coming off of COVID, there are a whole bunch of mental, issues going on. Kids trying to commit suicide. We got all this gun stuff. We got homelessness. This money could go back into our community. That's why I'm saying it's way bigger than just creating financial legacy. This is about, helping our community to heal from all of the repression that we've had to deal with for the last 400 years.
Jim, I think you're back. Are you back on with us? Jim, are you?
Yeah. Let me answer your question. Yeah, it's strong arm. It's straight strong arm tactics that they're doing through political means, through lobbying means, to try to divert money from the community and prevent true social equality and equal justice. Now, let's be soft about this. Let's call it exactly what it is. And unfortunately, they even do some folk that are so supposed that come in represent themselves for the community and real sellouts, and that's the bottom line. It's like one thing about us as Black folk, a lot of us don't believe we're supposed to have it. And then the ones that believe are just simple sellouts. But we've got some good agencies and the meat of the of the community that's behind it. But these things are the oppositions that we face. We not only face who's really behind us and not wanting to have look. If we want to have true equity, equality, and justice, we can sit down an hour and talk about how to do it. Just go do it. That's the problem. The problem is really don't want to do it. Folks, a lot of folks that are around that look for a reason for it not to happen rather than a reason to try and make it happen. Now, when it all goes back, we elect the people into positions. We have a voice that we don't use. Again, New York is offering 50% of all licenses to the community up front before they even start the program. and offer and they have through legislation 40% of the it's cannabis tax money going to the community. Our state budget is close to $80 billion plus a year, somewhere between depending if you add everything up, between $50 and $80 billion a year. And we're talking $250 million to the community, and there's still a push. Now, to the governor's credit, we had down with the governor yet. That's one thing that we're trying to do. But we do know that everybody in between the community and the governor are trying not to issue true equity and equality. And that's the truth.
And yeah, and to expound on that, it's like they don't believe that we deserve it. It's like you can't, it's like they go in with, oh, that's, you can't get that. We've been so conditioned into not having anything that we think it's okay, that when you offer us a bone, that it's okay, you know? And so that's why I said right up in the beginning, you know, we should be getting 75%. And to expound again on what Jim said about the money, that this money, they use 2% of this money. This is $1 billion, as well as there's they have $59 billion, plus they received $10.6 billion for COVID relief, which now, as you know, COVID's getting cut back. So they will always have about $1.5 billion that they have in reserves at all times. And right now, more than any, after we coming off this COVID thing, we need money desperately in our neighborhoods, and we need people going back to work. That's why I'm saying this thing is financially, it's not just about, you know, people selling cannabis. It's, you know, people build the buildings. People are the bookkeepers for it. People do the technology, the security for it. People of color. So this thing expounds. And
so Tony,
stays in our community.
So before, and I wanted to try to give y'all as much room as possible. We're almost out of time here. And then Jim, a little earlier, your internet was cutting out, and I think we missed some valuable information in regarding some of the numbers. But I want to give both of you an opportunity for final words here.
Yeah. So
because we're almost out of time, so I got for each of you. And Jim, if you want to go first, you can go first, and then I want to make sure that Phil gets an opportunity as well.
Yeah, let me talk the facts. We started in the bill in 2020. They had $1.1 million that was issued for technical assistance for social equity, and then that said for minorities and women, and they added "and women" in because that would be the white woman, which meant the white man would come in and do that and take that money. So it was really nothing for the community. We've gotten that bar pushed through adversity to 50% of the cannabis tax money, which is $500 million annually right now. It's $1 billion. They issue it out every other year biannually. And that's the fund is at $1 billion now. Now, we got recommendation from the work group. The legislation ordered 3 work groups to try to see what we needed to do for social equity. We got that pushed in 4 months from $1.1 million to $500 million biannually. And the work group that was designated by the legislation approved that to be sent to the task force to be approved. Now they're tripping so hard that got approved that there's political pressure to try to get the work group designated by legislation to walk that back. And that's on Tuesday. We're saying you're not walking back something that you guys already said that, you know, that's what you're going to do. So that plus from 38 licenses to us getting a equal portion of licenses, which is 1,800. Other words, you know, a license can't be issued out to anybody else other than a social equity applicant until we get up to 1,800.
You know,
the
Jim and
community.
Phil, I
so
feel like
those are the things, and that's
I feel like at this point we're rushing
got.
through it, and we're just going to have to do this again because I feel like we're rushing through it. And again, that is important. So we're going to have to do this again. Phil, I want to give you an opportunity for final words here. Take about 30 seconds.
Thank you, Tony. I just would like to say this, you know, real quick. Okay, I've been in recovery for a long time, and when I was going through that process, they have we have an amends process that we get to make, right? And that amends process is my sponsor told me, hey, you go to that person that you harmed and you ask him, how can I make this up to you? And so this is an amends process. This is where the state is coming to our Black community and saying, we've harmed you. How can we help you? What can we do? So when you're asking us what we want and we're telling you what we want and what we need, you can't then tell us that, oh, well, we can't give you that. So you are really making an amends process. You're just trying to just do something so you said you can do it. So bottom line, we are not going to yield. We are not going to yield. We're going to stay firm for our community. And like I said, this is bigger than the financial opportunity is wonderful, but the benefits to the community are the thing that mean the most to me, because now we can put money back into AA halls and places to help our people with recovery, with addiction.
Phil and Jim, I gotta go because we're gonna get to this next pro. But I'm inviting both of you to come back again because this is a bigger conversation.
All right.
Again,
if we can get more time to speak, that would be great.
Yeah, and this went by really
next
quickly
time, because all this is going down now for the community.
Appreciate y'all joining me. Again, you agree to come back again because this is a bigger conversation.
Absolutely.
And coming up, don't forget tonight, we'll be broadcasting the O'Day football game as part of our special broadcast. O'Day, we're in the playoffs now, and Metro League is representing. That'll be at 5 o'clock tonight. And then on Saturday at 2 o'clock, it will be Garfield versus Ferndale. Again, that's 2 o'clock on Saturday. We'll be broadcasting that live. And then again at 5 o'clock, Rainier Beach will be taking on Snohomish. Rainier Avenue Radio, your home for Metro League sports and for providing our community an opportunity to use our platform to share voice. That's it. That's all the time I have. I got to go. Thanks again to all of our guests. This is Tony B saying, remember, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you cannot, you are probably right. I'm out. Peace.